Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Political Vigilante. My name is Graham Elwood. Thank you for joining the show. We have a very special guest that I will bring in here in a second. As I've told you on the show, I've been learning more about crypto, and we've been talking a lot just about how we've talked on this show a lot about MMT over the last 2 years. I have an MMT playlist. Please check that out. And I wanted to bring, I'm trying to bring more experts on about crypto, and as I'm learning more about it, I want to teach all of you more about it because I think it's important for us to learn. So from the RT program Boom or Bust, let me bring Christy Ai on the show. Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
All right, awesome. So first of all, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show.
Of course, thanks for having me.
So I have been starting to get more involved in learning about crypto, and because I'm seeing I talk a lot on the show. You know, obviously I'm a big lefty, so don't like the two-party system and all that. Not that we don't have two fantastic candidates. Just, I mean, this is an exciting just to see democracy in action this November is just great. But I'm really beginning to learn more from studying how the central banks exert so much power, how they they help finance war and all this other stuff, and seeing sort of how crypto is, decentralized, and how it really is an empowering currency. So how do you, first of all, see how crypto is going to play itself out in the fact that the United States economy is going to just nosedive here? So, I mean, like they've been pumping it up. The Fed's been printing money. How do you see crypto playing as this whole American empire collapse? I mean, like, how do you see this playing out?
Well, as you alluded to earlier, and for your MMT playlist, I'm very eager to check it out. But I'm sure that as you've kind of saw it already play out before, MMT does not work. And we kind of got a preview of what that will start to look like this year already, as we've seen the dollar actually drop to a 2-year low earlier before bouncing back up, obviously. But short interest in the US dollar is actually booming, with other countries now handling the outbreak better, with other countries now shorting the US dollar. So the currency does stand to fall further as we get towards the end of the year. So it's only a matter of time before the dollar actually crashes and the US national savings rate sinks deeper into negative territory than we've ever seen it before. Because this US budget deficit problem, that's not going to go away anytime soon. And eventually, that's actually going to spark the entire dollar crash.
So more good news in 2020.
I mean, America is just walking away from globalization right now. We've seen it with the U.S. trying to fight. We've seen it with like the U.S. trying to exert its power onto Europe. And so it's focused on decoupling itself from basically the rest of the world. So with such a crash, it would spark something like the late 1970s stagflation crisis, where prices rise, but there's actually no economic growth because U.S. is already plateaued in its growth rate. It's not going to go anywhere. So it has to export stuff. Where else can it turn to for growth, since they kind of alienated themselves from China?
Yeah. So that's so you're saying, if I understand this correctly, and forgive me, I don't have a finance degree. So you're saying the short term countries are, when you say they're shorting the dollar, specifically, what does that mean? And so they're kind of betting we're going to go down. Is that what's happening?
Right now, there are hedge funds and institutional money managers who are now currently actively shorting the US dollar as well. And especially countries, they are actually selling off its dollar reserves. So Russia, China, if you look at their reserves of the US dollar, it's actually at the lowest level than it's ever before been in history. So you also hear right now the former chief economist of Morgan Stanley, he actually predicted that a 35% drop in the US dollar against all of the other major currencies. So as you can see, that is quite a significant drop, quite a very significant devaluation. So if you think about it just in terms of modern history, like very modern within the last decade, we've seen this recently with Greece, with Turkey, with Venezuela, with Lebanon, with China, even when they kind of weakened their currency during the trade war, even last year. I mean, I'm only listing the countries that we've heard about recently. So is the US so foolish to think that they are completely immune to something that has happened over and over and over again to every single country in history? Because history has shown that money printing has always been a problem, because societies just try to magically print their way out of debt. And that has never, ever ended well. Ever, not even once. So why does it think that it will end well this time?
Oh, because we're America. There you go. There's the science behind that.
And there's no history of failing there yet. So
we'll just put an American flag around it and then shoot it. Does that?
And everything will be well again.
Yeah, can't we just drive a big pickup truck through it and then you can just we win? Can't we just say that?
Well, I mean, as you mentioned, like with cryptocurrency, Bitcoin was actually born out of this last financial crisis that we had. So today we're witnessing all of these liquidity injections, all this QE and credit facilities that we have all over again. But the thing is with Bitcoin, unlike fiat currency, Bitcoin's monetary policy still remains untouched and basically as strong as ever, because you do not alter Bitcoin.
Well, that's as I learn more about it, that is truly the beauty of it. As somebody who lost his home 10 years ago, thanks to Obama letting the banks just steal 6 million homes. And I voted for the man. So when I hear the Biden's going to save us crew, I'm just like, you're hilarious. You're funny. Not that I like Trump at all, but so I wanted, that's why this go around, I was like, I'm not going to be beholden to their system, because I thought, the government is going to, put stimulus money in there to help us out, and the banks, they don't want people to foreclose. I naively thought, until we found out that they did, especially where I live, they wanted people to foreclose and use government money to do it. So, and I've told my story numerous times on this show, so most of my audience knows it. And that's why crypto is so intriguing to me. First of all, when I saw the CARES Act and they, had $4.25 trillion just given to Wall Street in the CARES Act, and they didn't give it to the American people. I mean, we got $1,200 and then, unemployment that I still have friends who haven't gotten yet. And now it's ending. And the thing I've talked about too on this show, there's 28 million evictions that are happening. And there was all these bubbles, as I'm sure you're more aware than I was, that I was learning about before the pandemic: the mortgage bubble, the student loan bubble, the car loan bubble, the carbon bubble. All these bubbles are now just going to implode. And it's like, it almost feels like they're all going to pop at the same time. Not to mention the fact that the stock market will probably nosedive. But then you watch
right now.
it's like the corporate media is like, well, the stock market's doing great. I'm like, what are they? I guess, well, they only serve the 1%. So this must be great for the 1%. I don't know. Like, I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but I'd love to hear, as somebody who's, this is what you study for a living, seeing all these bubbles, seeing the trend prior to the pandemic, the 60% of Americans that couldn't afford a $500 to $1,000 emergency. Well, one just showed up in March. So how do you see all of this playing out?
It's terrifying. It's like these asset bubbles that you just named. You see it everywhere, and it's absolutely terrifying. And as you mentioned, the actual valuation of a company right now has completely decoupled from the actual stock market. So people always say, oh, the stock market's rising. We've hit all-time highs, which President Trump is so proud of touting right now, that apparently we're hitting all-time highs again. It actually doesn't mean anything, because right now it's completely decoupled from reality. Valuations and multiples are so high. And right now, as you mentioned, there are all these asset bubbles. Right now, we're in this massive tech bubbles. The entire stock market is now at all-time highs, basically led by a very few companies, by just a handful of tech companies, basically leading this entire rally. So that already makes it very unhealthy, because when you think of the stock market's up, you would naturally think that, oh, the majority of the S&P components, the companies that make up the S&P, all of them should be up, right? Like, it's logical. You would think most of them are up if the S&P is up and at all-time highs. But that's actually not the case. More companies are actually down in the S&P index than are up. It's only the averages that help support the S&P index actually boosting the S&P up. there are more companies that are declining than increasing in the S&P. So that makes it terrifying. So that makes the entire thing very unstable and bubblicious, because you can already tell, like even from a logical standpoint, you don't need a finance degree to know that this makes it very unstable. It's bound to pop. We've seen the tech bubble in the 1990s. We are seeing this right now once again.
Yeah, and it's also too, I just reading like when the stock market crashed in 1929, the depression wasn't really felt until about 1932. And I feel like we're sort of like in the next year or two is really when it's going to just all these bubbles and as you talk about and are all going to be crashing, not to mention who knows what, since this country refuses to deal with COVID correctly, like it's going to spike in the winter as they've talked about. I mean, we just can't. And so, and then there's like the evictions and the civil unrest and all this stuff. I mean, I get the feeling like
it's going to be a massive hyperinflation cycle.
Yes. How will that translate? Because I also get the feeling like as the rest of the world watches America just collapse, that there must be, from an investment standpoint, just like you say, they've been betting against the dollar, but just in terms of investing in American companies or American anything, they're going to just be like, no, man. Do you see that happening?
All the foreign investment dollars, all of the real estate investments that the US has been getting in inflows, all of that is going to go away if there's no growth, if there's no demand. Because even right now that we're seeing that even though supply is gradually recovering over in China, over in the US, we see industrial output kind of rising again, we're still not seeing the demand recover yet. So if we do have this entire hyperinflation cycle, the US dollar devaluing and everything, countries are going to look at it and be like, okay, there's really cheap things in the US to start to invest in, but they're going to wait until it declines and hits rock bottom before that happens. So it's going to be a very painful, very slow ride down before we actually do make it back up.
So they're going to just wait till we hit rock bottom prices and then they'll buy up. Basically.
Exactly, because at that point, it's like, why do you want to invest in the US dollar? Why do you want to invest in the US when there's no chance of it recovering halfway? Because we all heard the government being like, oh, if we step in right here, then we can stop the downfall, we can stop the decline, we can stop it before it spirals out of control. And yes, they've made very half-hearted attempts. We had the CARES Act, we had more stimulus injected, but all that stimulus, it's not enough to actually lift the US. It's enough to just put us on a plateau, make it so that we're not in free fall right now. So without additional stimulus money coming in, we're going to see all of these small businesses fail. We're going to see more foreclosures. Right now, they have delayed all the evictions, but how long can you actually delay evictions? Landlords right now are getting restless because landlords aren't getting paid. They are the ultimate ones getting screwed over right now. But as you can see, things are going to get a lot worse before it gets better.
Well, I thought we were making it all great again. This is what I'm confused about.
Well, we can make it all great again with crypto, because that was actually born out of the last financial crisis to actually empower the people.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Now that we've painted this gloriously rosy picture, and I just feel like a crazy broken record. I was talking about this for several years on this show before the pandemic. And then when this pandemic hit, for the last 6 months, I've been like, this isn't good, guys. This isn't good. This isn't good. And then not to mention the civil unrest in the streets is already scary, and it's going to get worse, which is not going to, make the financial situation better. In fact, when there's food shortages and food riots, and then when all these evictions, some people are going to the sheriff's going to show up at the front door and say, we want your home. And they're going to sit there with their gun and go, nope. Click. And then that's going to be gnarly. So, and
on top of that, alienate your biggest trade partners, make yourself the enemy of the world, apparently.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. Yeah. Let's blame coronavirus on China. Like, okay, smart. Yeah. That's fantastic. It's also too watching. And I'm sure you've followed this, like the minute China went off the petrodollar to the petro-yuan, I was like, well, that's it. Now they're going to be an enemy. And they're just, because that's any country that's ever gone off the petrodollar, you're done. Gaddafi, Saddam, like you're done. It does, and China has been partnering with Russia. They have that pipeline. They're trading amongst Central Asia using their own currency. They got off the dollar for that. And that's the real thing I try to let my audience know is China's not going to attack us. They're just done letting us dictate our our empire and jamming it down everybody's throat. And so they're circumventing us, which is undermining the American empire. And that's what we're afraid of. And America's too stupid to like, hey, sorry, we're just going to go, no, America more better than you. Shut up, dumb America. So let's get into crypto though. Because I want to bring more like people that know crypto experts such as yourself on this show, because I'm new to it and I'm getting more. I know more about it than I did. A year ago, I was like, what? Okay, sure, digital, blah blah blah. You got it. Let me know when Bigfoot gets his own money or whatever. I didn't get it, but I'm on this platform. I'm on YouTube, obviously, but also on this platform that we're on right now, Rockfin, which is a blockchain cryptocurrency platform, and they pay content creators in crypto. And the last couple of months, I've been getting more knowledgeable about it, and their token just spiked, and I've cashed out, and I've converted some to Ethereum and some to Bitcoin. And I'm watching more and more of this, and I'm like, ooh, like Ethereum dropped a little bit, and I was like, awesome, I'm buying more. Like I'm actually, because I really feel from and just from watching shows like yours, Boom or Bust, and other shows, and just YouTubers, I'm really seeing how crypto is going to take off. But tell our audience, especially those watching who really were like me a year ago and have like, crypto is what is it? And kind of explain sort of what it is and how in this moment, as the American economy and the dollar are collapsing, how people can empower themselves with it.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you jumped on board the train and you see the true potential of crypto. Like, that is so exciting to hear when someone actually gets it, because crypto was actually born, as I said, like out of the last financial crisis in order to kind of empower the people, to take back the power that they essentially relinquished to the big banks by letting them control their capital. Because think about it. How scary is it that your money can't be touched? I mean, right now you're basically relying on the full faith and the reputation of the banks to kind of safeguard your money, but you're actually not free to use your money however you want it. Because if today you want to walk into a bank and say you want to withdraw $10,000, like any bank, Bank of America, Citi, Chase, about a Bitcoin's worth like $10,000, like, can you do that? In all likelihood, I would bet that no, you cannot do that without having to file extensive paperwork and hours of questions, and that will take, the entire transaction will take about 5 hours. And you go to an ATM, the most you can withdraw, 2,000. So your money, it's not really yours. It's there, you can see it, but can you move it freely, spend it however you want it? No. And especially during times of turmoil, volatile times of currency devaluation, for example, definitely not. That's when you see the capital controls coming down, tightening even further. And that was actually such the case with Germany even last year, as recent as last year, when there was a bit of a liquidity crisis and people lined up across the block in order to try to withdraw their money out of the banks. And they were like, no, capital controls, you can only withdraw about 500 euro Deutschmarks a week or something like that.
I want to interject this real quick for our audience, because you bring up an excellent point. All the stuff we were just talking about how economically all of these collapses are coming. It's another thing that I've forgotten to mention on numerous episodes, but I want to mention it real clearly now. That's the thing. Hey, viewers, you got whatever, 5, 10, 20 grand in the bank, and there's a run on the banks. They're going to do what she just said is going to happen here. That's going to happen. They're going to Citibank, Bank of America. I've always been a big proponent of credit unions, but anyone can just say, nope, you don't get your 10 grand right now. You get 500 or whatever, like they did in Germany. And that's going to happen again here. Like, am I wrong? Right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. So your money is not really yours. Right now, you just see a figure on your screen and you trust that your money is there. Essentially, it's based on trust. And sure, you have the FDIC saying, hey, your money is insured for $250,000 in case of theft, whatever. Yeah, sure. But where's the timeline for you to actually get that $250,000 back? No one knows right now. It's so vague. So the bank actually controls all of that money. And that's what's so exciting about cryptocurrency, because you actually bank yourself. That is the entire point of it, because originally it was created for the unbanked, because while you and I, we have bank accounts, 1.7 billion people actually don't have access to bank accounts. And that figure was released by the World Bank in 2017. But that actually gets worse, because a further 1.8 billion, they rely on these semi-formal or informal systems for their financial services. Think about like loan sharks, credit unions, things like that. So that's a total of 3.5 billion people ignored by the big financial guys simply because they don't earn enough, they live in a remote locations, or they just don't fit in with the views of their target customers. So think about the entire legal cannabis industry right now here in California. So this is a lack of formal banking prevents these people from participating in the modern world. So we take so many services for granted every day. Credit, being able to swipe a credit card and pay for something later, and that also extends to mortgages and loans. And even on a very small, minute level, that allows you to do online shopping, which everybody had to do during this pandemic.
I want to interject this too, because you bring up a great point, and I brought it up before. I brought it up from the angle of why we need to legalize, decriminalize rather, cannabis, is because of the banking issue here in the state of California, where, it's legal in California, but federally, and the banks are controlled federally, as you said, they have to do still kind of operate like drug dealers and not use standard banking. And like in Colorado, when they legalized it in Colorado, the real estate prices went through the roof because they all just put it in real estate. And so again, while we can do both things, I think we should definitely try to legalize marijuana. But here's where crypto comes in. Right? So all the cannabis, Are you saying all the dispensaries and stuff are using crypto?
I think that there will be a gradual move to crypto. Right now, here in California, there are a few dispensaries who are slowly accepting things like Bitcoin, things like Ethereum. But one of the biggest hurdles is, of course, education and educating the customers to actually convert their money into Bitcoin. And these are the reasons why you should do it. These are the reasons why it's good for you. And these are the ways that it makes banking just easier for the businesses to do. But that is still a very significant hurdle in the cannabis industry because we're not the most tech savvy people.
There's not a lot of digital bongs out there. There's not a lot of blockchain bongs. They're just like
exactly not the most tech savvy people. So it does take a little bit of an education process to do.
And yet they can play video games at a rapid rate. That's what I find so fascinating. So I was talking about this on my live stream yesterday, and some of my audience was just like, Graham, hey, I can't pay my rent with crypto. And I've explained to them, like, I use Coinbase, where I can link it to a bank account and convert into US dollars if need be to pull out some cash. But also I'm about empowering people to get us out of, because as you said, one of the things you brought up is all the unbanked people. Basically, the bank said, or they're too poor. They don't even have enough money for us to give them a credit card, and because they want us all in debt, right? They want us all working in some shitty job. They want us all in debt, and that's how they finance their wars and all this stuff. I've used the IMF example of how they leaned on the Ecuadorian embassy to make sure they pushed out Julian Assange, because they're like, well, here's $500 million, but you got this guy we don't want in there. And all of a sudden, hey, look what happened. So this is where crypto can come in. So explain just to people watching right now that are like, what should they do? What are their entry level steps? Because I've watched some crypto videos, and I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. And I don't even have an finance degree like you do. So I hear like market cap and stuff, and I'm just like, oh dude, I mean, this is like, they should have I'm a surfer and a comedian. I don't know what they're saying. So how would you sort of explain that to some of the viewers right now who, like, they get from a political level all the financial collapse and societal collapse stuff that we're talking about. They watch this show regularly, and they watch other lefty people like Jimmy Dore or whatever, and they get that's happening, and they're like, but I don't get crypto. So walk them through like how they could, like, their entry, like what would you tell somebody sort of crypto 101 or entry level stuff, or point them where to watch or whatever?
Well, I mean, first off, to start, you need to have a Bitcoin wallet. So whether that be a hard wallet or a soft wallet, that all depends on you and your skill set and what you're comfortable with. Because as you said, you can go to things like Coinbase. And the US actually made it very difficult for people to actually access Bitcoin. They did that on purpose because, again, they want to keep control of the entire financial institution and money flowing through the banks instead of some decentralized currency that they cannot control. So they actually purposefully made Bitcoin very difficult to get their hands on. And Coinbase remains one of the only places where you can actually just buy Bitcoin easily with PayPal, with credit card, etc. So yes, as a beginner, you unfortunately have to go through Coinbase unless you find someone with Bitcoin who you're able to transact with. That is the true purpose of Bitcoin, peer-to-peer transactions, zero middleman. That is the purpose of all this decentralization, that you want to be able to move money peer-to-peer. So if you think about it, that means no middleman intermediary, no bank to take a cut of that transaction fee of when you send money. So take out PayPal, take out Venmo, take out the big banks. And if you think about all of these cryptocurrency gambling sites, those are all pretty much peer-to-peer as well. A lot of them are peer-to-peer. There are some centralized gambling sites, but a lot of them are also peer-to-peer. So think about it. These Bitcoin casinos, there's no middleman casino taking a house cut. You're playing peer-to-peer against someone else. So it makes things more fair. And then if you think about it on an Ethereum level, where you get into smart contracts, you're taking that the audit process out of the middleman out, because essentially everything is already verified in the smart contract. So that's a very scary thing, because that basically means every single middleman will lose their job if everybody were to get on board cryptocurrency. So, but as you said, to start off with, you unfortunately have to start off with Coinbase unless you find someone who you can transact with peer-to-peer. I always recommend someone using a hard wallet, because then you actually own the currency yourself. It's less susceptible to any sort of hacking, cryptojacking, things like that. So that is the downside of cryptocurrency. You do have to know to protect your asset, because you don't have a bank now protecting your asset. Right now, if you forget your login to your bank, you can forget my password, bank sends you another one. There's no customer service here. You cannot forget your password. You cannot misplace your key. That makes you more responsible. And some people are like, oh, well, that sucks. I don't want to deal with crypto if I have to be responsible for my own assets. Think about it. You want to be responsible for your own assets. Like, who says that?
Yeah, you absolutely want it. You don't want these big evil banks. And that was the thing. At first I was like, huh, what? But I just want to explain to my audience, as it was explained to me, that the safety protocols to put in place, like write down your keys, these key phrases and everything, and put them in separate places. And this is where I encourage people to go to like some YouTubers that really explain these out in very simple, like videos that are like under 5 minutes. Like I talk about Bitcoin.com has a Bitcoin 101 series. There's a series of video, and they explain the wallets. I've also watched this woman, Crypto Casey, and she explains different kinds of wallets. And there's this guy, The Moon, and that most of the crypto channels that I found have some like basic, idiot's guide to crypto kind of videos on their playlist to kind of get over this huge hurdle like I had. I was like, what, dude? No, what? And now I feel way more comfortable. And I actually have I have a cold wallet where I store like long-term stuff. And then I have like some wallets on my smartphone, but I've put in like third step verification, which I actually like. It's so much like, I'm like, oh, there's no way someone could figure this out. They'd have to like cut off my thumb and brainwash me like a Jane Bond or something like that, which I don't know that I have that isn't much money for that. But so I say that to the audience as like a guy that was completely new to this, and the people at Rockfin have been so patient. This guy, Scott, is their like crypto expert, and he'll walk me through how to go through these transactions. I was just doing one the other day. I'm like, Scott, this is what is going on. And I feel like, I know he looks at me like I'm his grandmother, like, how does the internet work? But and to the viewer out there, you don't have to like liquidate your whole portfolio and sell your house and put it into crypto. Just start. Like Coinbase has this, like, if you buy $100, you get $10. Like, just get comfortable with it, but watch these videos. And I would also recommend to the audience to watch your show, Boom or Bust, to just see more of like the geopolitical landscape to motivate. It's one of the things that was motivating me. Like, man, I gotta wake up to this. I can't like sit around and go, well, what is this? Especially when the CARES Act happened. And I was like, that's not happening to me again. I'm not letting this happen again.
Yeah, exactly. And as you mentioned, it's actually not that difficult once you get through that initial hurdle of setting everything up, because once you set everything up, it's literally almost the equivalent of PayPal and Venmo in terms of sending, which is what most people actually use cryptocurrency to do, and what most people would be using this for. You send money to your landlord, as you just mentioned. You send landlord to family overseas, and that is the other great thing about it: cross-border transaction. Bitcoin, the other reason why governments and countries are so threatened by it, because this is the only true borderless currency. It is accepted in every single country for the same value. It is so liquid. So that is the other reason people can send Bitcoin overseas, pay their relatives, which is what half of the transactions that all of these people through MoneyGram do already. So you are essentially banking yourself. And the really exciting thing about 2020 is that the crypto ecosystem is actually maturing. So all of this high traditional banking products that are available for the traditional market, such as the high yield interest, the interest-bearing deposits, taking out loans, getting credit, online shopping capabilities, that is actually being built out right now. So as of today, you can book flights, you can book hotels, you can have real estate transactions, some car dealerships actually accept Bitcoins. So there are plenty of places that now accept cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is already considered legal tender in Japan already.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. And this is like, and again, this is empowerment. This is taking the central banks and the central governments and these, with their, power, it's that the American empire wields, and this is how we get our power back.
Bitcoin is a hedge to fiat regimes.
Yes. Yes, it is. It is. It truly is. Because how can I, they can, and that, again, you talk about the peer-to-peer, and this is the thing when we talk about crypto wallets. So I have a wallet, and then a fan watching the show that's in China, that's in Germany, that's in the UK. We have a lot of fans in Australia. I mean, I think about it like I just did a tour in November of shows in Australia, and they paid us in Australian dollars, and the Aussie dollar was less, and we had to kind of wait, and it was this whole thing. And then we converting it, we got killed on exchange fees. And I'm like, if these venues would have done crypto, it would have been, and there's so just to let our audience, there are little fees, but it's nothing compared to what the banks charge. And it changes the game for international performers such as myself, or you're doing any sort of business internationally. I remember too, when I was producing the Los Angeles Podcast Festival, we had several Australian comedians come over, and our accountant was like, "Oh God, don't pay, figure, what are you going to give them cash in an envelope and we'll just write it off." And I was like, it was such a thing. And now we could just go, "Yeah, dude, give me your crypto wallet." Boom. And, and it's done. So, folks, that's get educated for starters. And then this is how you give yourself a little emergency plan here for when America is financially, I can't keep saying this. I mean, but I'm going to say it every day to wake people up. Like, the economy is going to crash. So be prepared. And that's the other thing too. If you run a small business and get knowledgeable about crypto, now then you can start accepting it, right? As a business owner. I mean, I have my crypto wallet is in the show notes on my videos on YouTube, and that's, some people prefer to donate to the show that way, which is fantastic. So, before we let you go, Christy, and this has been really, really awesome and eye-opening, what other advice would you sort of give people, and what other trends do you see crypto, specifically the big two, Bitcoin and Ethereum? Where do you see them going?
Well, right now, the big trend is definitely the DeFi, which is decentralized finance. So as I just mentioned, this is the high yield interest bearing portion of the cryptocurrency that has just started to mature and take off. So what this segment of the market is interested in, and this has become a little bit of an inflated bubble. People are very excited about it. They're excited because this is where you can actually take out a loan, get a loan in fiat dollars for a purchase that you want to transact. A friend of mine wants to buy a boat. he cannot buy a boat with Bitcoin, but he doesn't want to sell his Bitcoin. So what you can do is you collateralize your Bitcoin. So you don't have to sell it. You can still, if you think it's going to go higher next year, it's going to be great because you still have it. It's just going to be collateralized. And instead, that institution will pay you, another peer will pay you in fiat dollars in order to hold that, and you have to pay an interest on it.
So
high yield, interest-bearing loans.
Okay, let me see if I figure this out. I'm going to just use round numbers. I'm like your friend. I want to buy this boat. It's 50 grand, let's just say, and I got $50,000 in Bitcoin, but I don't want to spend the $50,000 in Bitcoin.
Yes.
So then I pay
you collateralize it. You pay an interest, whatever interest that may be that you negotiate out with your peer. You pay an interest on whatever loan, but you can get your 50,000. It'll be less because it's collateralized. So say it's collateralized 50%. So you get $25,000 in fiat currency.
Oh, wow. But I still
but you still have your Bitcoin. It'll be returned to you within a year, 2 years, whatever the negotiated term is.
So that's like a collateral. That's how rather than just like, I want to buy a $50,000 boat. I put 10 grand down and then I get a loan for 40 grand. I'm basically using, and the boat would be the collateral in that older model. Now the collateral is my Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, exactly. So this is the trend that is slowly taking off, and it's actually very exciting to see. So definitely the DeFi trend is very exciting. And the other thing is going to be privacy coins, because as we know, privacy is going to be increasingly a very big thing as every single transaction is being tracked. That is something that a lot of countries are looking at, doing these central bank digital currencies. So not real cryptocurrencies, but CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, in order to try to monitor citizens' transactions. So while that all sounds all well and good, that also gives them the right to block any transaction that they deem unacceptable or things like that. So think about that. Further capital controls on your spending, not only your withdrawal habits, but now also your spending and what you can or cannot spend on. So as things graduate towards that level, as things moves towards that, privacy, security, things like that are going to be another very big sector of cryptocurrency markets, such as things such as Dash, such as Zcoin, such as Monero, things like that.
Okay. I kind of understood what you said, but sort of didn't. I'll be honest with you. Because I sort of get it in the sense that, like, so I talk about Rockfin and they mine their own token, the Ray token, and that's how they pay us. And then I convert that into Ethereum, and I can convert it to Bitcoin or cash or whatever I want to do. So, but I'm realizing that all these different companies and businesses are mining their own tokens. Was that what you're talking about in terms of this privacy thing?
No, so privacy coins, things like Dash, things like Monero, they obscure the sender from the receiver. So it's a private transaction.
Ah, I see. So you just see that this wallet number and that wallet number, not Christy gave Graham $100 or whatever.
On a very high level, yes.
Okay. All right. I'm just trying to boil it down so that my comedian surfer brain can get it. That's what I'm trying to just put it in comedian surfer.
On a very high level, yes. It does a better job of protecting your privacy and anonymity from the receiving end.
Okay. So any parting thoughts here? Any like quick piece of advice to give our audience what they should do?
Definitely learn from history and know that the US is not immune, because as you've seen in recent history already, you've seen all of these things brewing over in Greece, Venezuela, Turkey, Lebanon. The US will fall into the exact same pattern, and the only reason it hasn't is because the US dollar is a reserve currency and every other country depends on it. But you're already seeing this de-dollarization trend that you mentioned with China, with Russia, with India even, and that de-dollarization will slowly start to increase as Europe also realizes that it can also jump off the bandwagon whenever it wants.
Well, folks, get informed, get knowledgeable, and watch Boom or Bust. Christy, where can people follow you online and get more of this information?
You can follow me on Instagram, Christy_AI.
Okay. And then Boom or Bust, if you don't have RTN cable, all the Boom or Bust shows are on the Boom or Bust YouTube channel. Is that correct?
Yep. All awesome. There.
Check that out. Christy, thank you so much for taking time to educate us. We really appreciate it. And we'd love to have you back on the show if you ever want to come back.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Take care.